Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. Today on the pod, I have an incredible guest with an incredible story. I wanted to take a slightly different approach with this week's episode, so instead of my guest just telling me a story, I actually chat with my guest a little bit more this week. It's not necessarily an interview, but I just wanted to ask some specific questions because my guest had a book that just came out on August 26th of 2021, and her book is her story. Naz Meknat is on the pod today. She's a celebrity stylist and an author. Her memoir, 7,000 Miles to Freedom, like I said, just came out in August of 2021. If you want to hear more of Naz's story, please go check out her book. It's truly incredible. It's inspirational. I'm so thankful she shared it with us today. Now, that being said, she does have kind of a funny story at the end that I'm so happy she ended with because it's just hilarious, and it's really a great way to end this week's episode. So without further ado, please welcome Naz Meknat.
Okay, perfect.
I love that.
All right.
How's your morning been?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just thinking a little bit earlier, and I was like, man, how did I even come across Naz at first? And then I was like, oh yeah, we have the same publisher. I was like, oh, that's why.
You're with Black was writing as well, right?
Yeah, so I have a book coming out in a week from Thursday, I think.
God, how exciting.
Yeah, kind of crazy. And then yours just came out in August, right? August 26th?
26th or 26th.
Cool. How's it been?
Good. It's a wild ride. It's a memoir, so it's just like so different to have to share your life with the whole world.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to have a story to share, especially one like that one that you share in the book, which is amazing. But it's like also the idea of writing it down and like, obviously you lived it, obviously it's real, but like putting it into words and giving those words to other people to read, I feel like would almost even make it even more real in certain ways.
It's been one of the hardest things I've ever done. So, but here we are.
I love it. I am like kind of curious, like I'm sure you always, a small part of you probably always had the idea to write this into a memoir, your experience, your story, kind of what you did and went through. Was there any like inciting incident for you where you were like, I just want to do this. Like, I just need to get this done.
I actually wasn't something that I thought about I wanted to do ever. I'm very private, so I just wanted to keep the story to myself. Even my, family that I'm very close to didn't know a lot of details or some, events and incidents. They had no idea. I just was like, what's the point of, just breaking their hearts, hearing the stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no, I never wanted to talk about it. And a lot of my close friends didn't know. And when the Me Too movement happened a few years ago, I was just always speaking so passionately about, the movement and the people who are coming forward. Friends of mine just noticed there's something in me. So they asked some questions and I told them, bits and pieces of my past and my story. I didn't really tell them the whole thing. And they were just, they were fascinated and they kept like, write it, like you have to. And I still said no, I still resisted. As I said, the idea of like putting your whole life and experience out there, it's very scary. And then one of my friends, he's from the same region as I am.
Oh, cool.
He's from Afghanistan and I'm from Iran. But he said something that it was a nail in the coffin. He said, this is not about you. You understand telling the story might help someone who is in your situation where you were. This is a responsibility that you have. All your fears, what will people say? What will people think? It's like, don't make it about you. And I was like, whoa.
I love that.
That was when I decided, okay, I'm going to do it.
I love that so much. And I mean, I would say like that's not unlike the Me Too movement where I feel like it just kind of takes a tribe to say, hey, we love you, you're supported. this is an important thing to share, and like it could help so many more people if you just are willing to share it.
It was
That's
just
crazy.
the bravery of the women to put
Absolutely.
themselves in that situation and tell their stories. It's a scary place. It's not easy.
Absolutely.
Just like
Well,
share.
especially like in our very male dominated society,
And
like
especially the industry I'm in, a lot of
absolutely.
people told me not to, right? It's like, don't do it. The industry you're in, you might not get clients. And I'm like, I'm not talking bad about it's before I
Mhm.
started in this industry. So this is not even about that. But I would, some people discouraged me from writing it. And they were,
Mm.
I don't know your career, but as I said, I saw the bravery of these women
Yeah.
speaking about the most intimate and scariest experiences in their life. I was like, I gotta do it. I have
Yeah.
to.
Absolutely. Now, kind of knowing that, how have those interactions changed now that the book is out and now that people do have access to read the story? Like, have you found those people are like, oh, hey, this is actually really brilliant. We're glad that you did that. Or how, are they kind of sticking to their guns? Or like, what's that like? What's that like experience been now that the book is out?
Sticking to what they told
Oh,
me. To be honest, I want to say 99% of people had a very positive reaction.
cool.
Strangers and friends or family. They've all been very kind and surprised
Mm,
because, as I said, I work in this industry, which is entertainment industry. I work with celebrities, and that's such a fascinating world to some people. So for them to hear the backstory, where I actually came from, what I went through to get here, they were like, "What?" Even my closest friends, they were like, the image we had, was so different than what you actually have lived through.
mm,
So I want to say, yeah, 99% of people have been positive.
that's great.
Response has been great and kind. Surprisingly, I've gotten one or two reactions from people I didn't expect. The people that like I thought would be super supportive. They were like, "Oh, I would never talk about these things." And I had to take a step back and be like, "Why would she say this, or what would you think this way?" And everybody's different. Some
Yeah.
people would like to protect their image, and I could have taken that road to be like, I have this image that people think, oh, so fancy, and this job and the events that you go to, because it's the life they see on social media.
Yeah.
So I could have
Hmm.
just protected that facade. And we live in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
where the image to some people is everything. But I felt like times are changing, and the more authentic you are, the more honest you are, the more people can relate to you. I'm not a robot. I've had a past. I lived a lot. So I'm like,
Yeah.
it's gonna bother some people, and it's gonna think like, oh, I would have never talked about these things. I'm like, okay, you shouldn't. But
Yeah.
I personally felt responsible to be completely honest. When I decided I'm going to write this book, I said, I'm going to go all the way, or I'm not going to do it. I'm
Yeah.
not going to hold back.
I love that. I mean, I think that creates the most like authentic work. So I'm glad that that's what you decided to do with it. Okay, so normally I just have someone tell me a story, but I'm just so fascinated by like kind of what you have to share. And I know that your story is your book, so like I would much rather people just buy your book and hear your story that you have to tell. So in lieu of like the traditional kind of format of how I do these, are there any like key moments or key highlights or key experiences you had kind of in the midst of what you went through that you would like want to share or talk about, or anything that kind of stands out to you? Like,
I'm glad that even though I just like, even till the last minute the book was being published, even afterwards, I questioned
mm,
my decision. So I was just like, as I said, I'm very private, and I don't just go around talk about my experiences and the trauma. Um, so I doubted this, process of being so open
yeah,
the whole time. Um,
it's scary.
it's very
It's really
scary.
scary. Yeah.
And, it brings back, so these events. I lived in the States since 1997.
Hmm.
So these events happened between like 1994 and 1997 till I left. So it's been more than 20 years.
For sure. Yeah.
But facing them again, having to write about all those memories. And these are the memories that I, not necessarily sit down and think about every day. So I kind of put it in the back of my mind. I'm here, I'm safe, I can go on with my life now. I don't have to worry and be scared of what's going to happen to me. It brought back all those memories. So it gave me an opportunity to actually sit down with all these thoughts and experiences and feel them for one last time. So in a way, I want to say it was therapeutic. I never seek, therapy or anything for, the trauma that I experienced. So it was very therapeutic. It definitely brought my relationship with my mom a lot closer. So for people who are going to read the book or read the book, they know, like, in my teenage years, I had some turbulence with my relationship. I'm the youngest, of four siblings, and my age difference with them is very big. So it's like 11 years, 9 years, 7 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
2 years apart. And then there's me.
Yeah.
So I feel like I didn't have the relationship I really craved and wanted with my mom. And all my life, I kind of like blamed her. And then having to write this book, I had to talk to her about a lot of things, because I was either very, very young and like I was a small child, I wouldn't remember some things. And she has a better memory than I do. So
I love that.
An instance that was like about me, but I wouldn't remember. And then I had to ask her about her life. I had to, because I also include some of that in my book about what my mother went through. Listening to her made me realize what a strong woman she is. And the way that I was feeling when I was a teenager had nothing to do with her lack of love for me. It was just the best she knew how to do at the moment.
Yeah, totally.
So it definitely, one of the best things that came out of writing the book was first healing, and recognizing that I'm very strong. I went through that and I'm here. And also like brought my relationship with my mom a lot closer. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's amazing. I love that so much. And now is the rest of your family also in the States now as well? Or do you still have some overseas?
No, they're all here. So I was the last person.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I was the last person who was back home. I got married to my very first boyfriend at age of 19, and I stayed behind. My siblings, everybody was living in the States, in California already. And unfortunately, I made the decision to stay behind.
But you're here now, so that's all that matters, I guess.
Yeah, so everybody's here. That's like one of the things that I cherish the most, being close to my family, because as I said, I was back home. They were all here. So for years, I was separated from my siblings. My parents were going back and forth, but I was separated from my siblings. So it's very important to me now that I'm close to them, and they live like, an hour outside of LA. When I decided that I want to move to Los Angeles for my work, I was just like, had this anxiety, and they were like, you understand it's just an hour away?
Like, no, we're so close. We're like right down the street. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's incredible. Okay, so you're here. You get to California. Did you know you wanted to work in the field that you work in now?
Not exactly. So I was always a very creative child. The only creative child in my family.
I love it. I can relate. Yeah.
And in like medical industry, they're all like have very serious jobs. But I was always a dreamer. I was fascinated with anything creative. So film was one of my like greatest escapes. I loved movies, I loved films. I loved drawings. I would write poetry. I would experiment with like fashion. So I was always the first who wanted to like wear the latest fashion, and anything in a creative field. I loved it. It just kind of like made me feel alive. So when I came to the States, I came from a world that's so different from here. It probably wouldn't have been as big of a shock if I moved to Europe, because our cultures are kind of similar because we're closer to Europe than America. This is its own world. Like when you come to America, you're just like, everything is different. So first I had to find my place here. I'm lucky that my whole family was here. So I had, them to kind of like, and besides my sisters and my parents, I have like cousins and uncles and, second cousins. I have a big family.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
In Southern California. So I'm lucky that I had that, but it's still for myself. I was an adult. I was 23 years old when I moved here. I had to find my place and get used to America and California. So it took me a few years to kind of like get a job and kind of like I spoke English, but we are taught British English, more like very proper.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had to kind of, find a way to kind of perfect my language skills, American English. I had to find, what is it like? Where do I belong? Where do I fit in this country, in this community? And then obviously I had to take care of my citizenship and, becoming a legal citizen and all that. So that took a few years. Once that was done, I just one day I got engaged to an American man, and that was like my very first experience of like being in a relationship with, an American man. I was so infatuated by, and he wasn't even like, it's funny to say this now, years later. Now I'm like, it wasn't even love. It was just such an infatuation with, the first
interesting.
I had a relationship with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The engagement was like, it wasn't a good thing. So we broke up. After we broke up, it was just, you try so hard, you go through so many hurdles to get here. And I'm like, why am I so defeated by such a, it wasn't compared to what I've gone through. It wasn't that serious. So I had to think that, you know what, I need to do something for me, something that I always wanted to do. I'm here. I have the opportunity. Let's not focus on relationships now. This is not the time. So I decided to go to school, and I went to college late. I went to college when I was like 28. I decided to go to a fashion institute of design and merchandising and take like something that I've always dreamed of. I'm like, I wanted to be a creative person, but I want to have an education behind it.
I love that. Yeah.
Myself through college. I graduated with a fashion degree, and little by little, I just started working with clients and building my career. And years later, here we are.
I love that. I know we kind of chatted briefly, I think either via Instagram or Facebook. This book is sort of like a one-off. You kind of were able to scratch that creative itch. You don't plan to write any other books as of now, right?
Never say never.
Yeah, so there you go.
I'm like, okay, I'm not a writer by trade. This is not what I do for living.
Absolutely.
I don't, so when people say, you're an author, and I'm like, that sounds very like serious. I'm like, yeah, you wrote a book, and I'm like, okay. But
I love that. Like, that sounds pretty intense. I don't know if that's what I am.
I'm like, oh. Such a serious title. I don't know if I can live up to that, but yes, I did write my book. I did write my memoir. However, I always say I'm like, I had one story. But then people come back and ask me, like, so how did you get here? Because my book ends when I arrived to US.
Oh, cool.
So I arrived here in I just had an anniversary actually. November 27th of 1997.
That's amazing.
My story in the book ends the day after. I talk a little bit about like what I do now. At the beginning, I opened the book with the story of like me in Cannes Film Festival. But I don't go into details of what happened after I got here. How did I, get my citizenship, what happened, my relationships after that, my career. So some people are curious and do ask, so would you write? I'm like, you know what? Maybe.
Yeah, never say never.
Never say never. I don't know. I don't know if I won't. We'll see.
Yeah. You could call it 7,000 hours sitting in LA traffic. You could
oh my God. That's
you could call it that.
Big title. I know.
If you could, because like I said, my whole goal with, I think this episode with you is just gonna I'm just going to yell at people to go buy your book, because I think that's the best way to support both the story and you, which is great. If there was one thing you could wish people would take away from reading your book, what would that be?
So, after writing the book, I just found myself being really drawn to the whole, women's rights and, being active in domestic violence and survivors and victims of, domestic violence and child abuse and, all that comes with, anything that children and women are facing as far as the violence. One thing that I really would like women especially to take from the book is that what is waiting for you after you leave a very abusive relationship cannot be worse than your current situation. The biggest message I have is just ask for help. I come from a country that women have no right. They're not, human rights is not practiced. And when you speak about human rights not being present, then, women in those countries absolutely have zero rights. So I had nowhere to go. As I said, my whole family was here in the States. I was alone with, my, at the time, husband, who was extremely abusive, and his family was turning a blind eye. They just didn't want to have anything to do with it. If I went to the police, they would laugh at me and send me back because once you get married, you're the property of the man. There's no organizations or nonprofits that I could go to and ask for help. And I'm speaking about, 1996, 1997. I don't know.
For sure.
I don't know how it is now. Things might be better. But at the time when I lived there, you live in a country where it's ruled by an extremist Islamic government. There's no way that, I had no way of going to anybody and ask for help. So I had nowhere to go. So when people ask, like, what is your message? My message is, if I could do it in a country like that, and I could, my life literally changed within 30 minutes. I wasn't speaking about the abuse that was happening for a long time. I didn't tell my sister would call from California to check on me once a week, and I wouldn't say anything. So finally, when it got to a point that it was a matter of life or death, and I was like, I might not wake up the next day. I might die from, the physical abuse that I'm experiencing. And my family wouldn't know what happened because I never said anything. So when I decided to speak up and say something to my sister, within 30 minutes, my whole life changed. So we had a plan in place. I left, and, you can read the rest in the book, but my heart breaks when women in the state or in, I don't know, England, Germany, because I hear these stories that they stay in abusive relationships because they think there's nowhere to go. They might not have a supporting family. They might not have financial support, but they don't understand, like, there are so many people out there. There's so many organizations. You live in these advanced, developed countries, that there are, resources out there for you to reach out to. And there's always somebody that can help you. But if you don't know, you don't know. So you have to speak up. You have to ask for help. And it breaks my heart when women don't do that. And I hear stories all the time where they get killed, and, the abusive partner that they're with does something that they either, end up in a hospital, or they're killed, or their children are hurt. So I just want to tell them the best thing you can do for yourself and your children is to leave. If you ask for help, there's always somebody out there that will help.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I think that's like such an important, that's just such an important thing to share and to encourage people that, there is always help available. Like, you don't have to feel so alone in that situation. And then to your point, like, especially being in America where we do have so many resources, like, for as broken as our system can be sometimes, like, we do still have so many resources that are available to people that need
it's
them.
not perfect. It is
absolutely
not.
Yeah.
The stories of, women have left, I went to a shelter, but, the system is broken. Definitely. There are things that can be, a little better in place, policy and, help. However, it's not worse than what they're living, the experiences they're having.
Absolutely.
With partner.
Yeah, absolutely.
And abuse is not just physical. Like, I had an experience after, I had a very long relationship here for years. with a man that I thought I will marry. And there was no physical abuse like I experienced before. But after a few years, I'm like, I see a pattern. And I feel like mentally and emotionally, I'm being abused because everything I do is not good enough. I'm always put down for things that are like I'm doing is not perfect. And it's compared to an ex or compared to this person and that person. And I recognize that because I've already been through the worst of the worst.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, I was like, I recognize that and I'm not going to take it and I'm going to leave, because just because it's not physical, it doesn't mean it's acceptable to be
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Putting in that place. We have one life. It's a short life. So I just, want people to understand, they're worth it. They can leave and it would be better. It definitely would be better. It wouldn't be easy, but it would be better.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I love that. And I completely agree. Thank you for sharing all of that. That's so it's just incredible. And like I said, I'm going to advocate hard for people just to buy your book so they can read your story, because I think that's really important. You said you have sort of a lighthearted story that you wanted to end with. So I'm all ears.
I know my book is very heavy.
For sure.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, it's a short read, but it's not a light read. One of my friends, when he came out, he went and ordered 10 copies. And I'm like, why? He's like, I want to give it for Christmas gifts. I'm like, that's not a story that makes people happy around Christmas time and the holidays. I'm like, I don't think this is a book.
I love it.
It is, and it's heavy. And
but you're like, but also thank you very much. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but just warn them,
Yeah.
It's not gonna make him happy, it's gonna make him cry. I apologize in advance, but it's a true story. It's my life. So, but one of the reasons that people are very fascinated and very surprised by my story is because most of the people have seen my life here, and especially with social media being, for the past 10 years being really, big, and people have only seen my life through the lens of social media, which very little people put the bad experiences and hard times on social media. Everybody's always putting, trips and travels and, fun things. So for people seeing I'm a celebrity stylist, and obviously I post my clients, my work, the events that I go to, and all these fashion and fun stuff, knowing where I came from and how I got here. That's what makes them feel like, whoa, I can't believe. And this is very important to me because I have young nieces and nephews. And I know how social media affects me as an adult and as a grown woman who's been through life experiences. So when I see younger people looking at all these things in social media and comparing themselves and getting down and, sad and depressed, I felt like, it's very irresponsible of me putting all this stuff, which I have been, on social media, but not talking about how I got here. It's not that I didn't wake up and everything was handed to me and I have such a fabulous life in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
It's important for people to know I went through hell. And till I got here. So it was hard, even making a name for myself in the industry and become a celebrity stylist. It definitely is not something that was handed to me. I started late, so I was always behind every colleague of mine because they were all so much younger. They started here. They had the resources, right when they graduated high school, and that wasn't my situation. So that didn't discourage me. And I was just like, this is what I love to do and I'm going to go after it. And it was a hard road, but I'm here. But people love to hear stories about, celebrities and these So one of the things that I tell them when they want to hear a lighter, funnier story. In 2019, I think it was an after party for a Golden Globes or Emmys. I don't know I want to say maybe it was a Golden Globe after party, and it was a Netflix after party.
Okay.
So my friend who, works in the film industry, and we decided to go to this after party. So I usually just get my clients ready. It's usually a hectic day when it's a big award show. So you early in the morning, there's like a weeks of prepping.
Mm-hmm.
And that day you have to go to your clients, hotel room or place, get them ready, make them look perfect, send them to the red carpet. And we usually, if you're invited to an after party, we run home, watch the show as we're getting ready. And when the show ends, we all go to a party.
Mm-hmm.
So we were invited to the Netflix party, and we were very excited to get this invitation. So we managed to get an invitation to this party. So we are super excited. We're probably the first people who are in that party. Nobody was there.
Yeah.
So we found the spot, and it's a couch right on the dance floor. We're like, this is the best spot. Nobody's here yet. Let's save this so we can watch everybody.
Yeah.
Sitting there, all these celebrities started coming in, and big celebrities. Obviously, it's a Netflix party. And we had a couple of drinks already because we were so early. We were just sitting on the couch watching, the party, the celebrities mingling. And on a dance floor, some people, started dancing. And there's this lady dancing the night off by herself on the dance floor. And she looks at us and she goes like this.
Yeah.
My friend and I look at each other like, who is this person? I'm like, she looks like Amy Poehler, but that's not Amy Poehler. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go dance with a stranger. And she kept saying, come to, both of us are like, nah, thank you. The next day we are going through social media and what people, these media outlets post about the parties. And it turns out it was Amy Poehler.
Oh my God.
She was on a dance floor, same outfit and everything. And we were like, oh my God, you were so rude. Not that you should be rude to anybody, celebrity or not. But saying no to Amy Poehler who wants to dance with you, who do you think you are? But it was so funny because my friend actually is a huge fan of hers.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, she's in the movie industry. And she was just like, I cannot believe I missed the opportunity to actually be on a dance floor with Amy Poehler and dance with her. I cannot believe we
was specifically doing the universal sign of come dance with me. This is going to be fun.
Exactly. And we're like, who is this lady? She looks like Amy Poehler, but did you know?
Oh my God. I love that.
So we were thinking it's just a random person like us who found
Yeah.
So long story short, we were really embarrassed the next day, and we were doing some had a podcast, but during the pandemic, the two of us would just talk about subjects and put it on YouTube, and we had to apologize and say we are so sorry, we had no idea what to do. If you ever hear this, please forgive us.
Oh my gosh.
My one really embarrassing story that, people usually just tell us a funny story. I'm like, honestly, I still to this day, I cannot believe we did that.
I love that. That is so
And we said no to Amy Poehler. So
I love that so much. Thank you so much for this today. It was so great to chat with you. Like I said, I'm just gonna herd people towards your book.
Yeah, anybody who wants to get the book, it's on Amazon, 7,000 Miles to Freedom. And if people want to have more updates, I usually just post it on my Instagram. They can just see what I'm up to and all the interviews and questions.
I love it. Thank you so much again. You're great.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great rest of your year. And yeah, I'll look forward to us chatting again soon.
Sounds great. Happy holidays.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you again for listening to this week's episode of Tell Me Yours. Thank you so much to Naz for sharing her incredible story. Again, if you want to know more about her story, please go buy her book, 7,000 Miles to Freedom. It's available on Amazon. You can also find links through her website, which is just nazmeknat.com. Or if you want to follow her on Instagram, It's just at Naz_Meknat. I'll make sure to leave all of this information in the show notes of this episode. Please go follow her. She's incredible. She's wonderful. If you want to follow us, Twitter and Instagram, we are just at TellMeYoursPod. And if you want the full unedited episode with Naz, head over to patreon.com/tellmeyours. I will have the full and uncut episode with video there. Thank you so much again, Naz, for sharing your story. Everyone go buy her book. Thank you so much again for listening to this week's episode of Tell Me Yours. And until next week, be kind to each other, and we'll talk soon.